everybody, and welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Mariane Pinkston. I am Dr. Mariane Pinkston, and I am bringing you some great information. I hope that you've been enjoying the podcast. We've been doing this for almost 2 years now. We've got almost 100 shows. I'm very proud of them. I bring a lot of information from locally here in San Antonio to San Antonio Radio on 930 The Answer, but also podcasts to every platform out there from podcast land and to YouTube where you can actually watch the show. So if you will go to drpbetterlife.com and take a look, you can find all of the links to the platforms as well as lots of other information about all the guests that I've had, both nationally and locally. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. Today is going to be no exception as I have some great information. I want to bring you about what I am doing in my clinic now and what is available now in a multitude of cities around the nation. And it is called a multifunctional cardiogram, or MCG. Now, I'll explain the test here in just a minute, but I want to explain the basis of doing this test because it's I just have to giggle for a moment because when I say it's exceptionally important, I think is an incredible understatement. Heart disease in our country is the number one killer of people. And if you want to look at the stats, there are up to 700,000 people a year who die of cardiovascular disease, and encompasses a lot of different ways that the heart is affected, that people will die. But you have to imagine that in 4 years, that number, actually less than 4 years, that number would kill every person in San Antonio. So with 2.4 million people here, and about 3.5 years, we would all be dead of cardiovascular disease. That is an extraordinary number. Now, the people who die from cardiovascular disease don't just die, except 33% of people who just don't wake up one day or who are somewhere enjoying their life and actually just drop dead, basically. 33% of those get a warning. And the 33% that get a warning have some sort of chest pain or fatigue or indigestion or some sort of symptom that brings them to the emergency room or to their doctor's office, where then they get an EKG, and you can find that something is going on at the moment or something has already happened. The other 33% just have a silent heart attack and then have some repercussion afterward that ultimately within 5 years kill them at that point. So you can imagine that is 60% of people who have had a heart attack who actually die. 33% of those actually have some sort of warning beforehand. The odds are not very good. So when people die of a heart attack, what happens? You have either a blockage in one of the arteries or a multitude of arteries, and it doesn't just grow until it gets blocked, although that does happen. What happens is about 30 to 50% of that artery gets blocked, becomes unstable, and a small piece of that unstable plaque that we call it, or blockage, breaks off, goes down to a smaller artery in the heart, blocks that artery, and then the heart on the other side of that artery, the tissue there, does not get oxygen and dies. Most of the time it dies. Most of the time it's just affected and part of it dies. And then you get things like congestive heart failure or some other property of heart disease that leads to death within the next 5 years or so. There are other heart diseases that affect us, such as congestive heart failure, myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart. Inflammation of the heart is an astronomical cause of heart disease as well. Inflammation of the heart generally can't be seen or felt, again, until it's too late. And the primary cause of that is alcohol. And I didn't say alcoholism. I said just alcohol. So those of you who dabble a little bit, a night or two a week, a glass or two of wine, probably not talking about you, although that could be the case, but it is those who have 2 or more drinks a night, especially binge on the weekend. You may not drink during the week, but you binge on the weekend. Up to 700,000 of you are also going to have some sort of heart disease that would kill you as well. So already we are 1.4 million people in a year that die from some sort of heart disease. There are other types of heart disease as well. So knowing all of these stats, what can you do to avoid having this happen to you and succumbing to heart disease? Well, a lot of people will go to their cardiologist or to their primary care even yearly, say, give me an EKG, I want to get my heart checked. Primary care, somebody does an EKG. What does an EKG tell you? An EKG is very simply electricity that is run from little leads, you've seen it, little leads across the heart and chest, across the chest that read the heart, and then on your arms and legs. And the EKG can tell you about the electricity going through the heart, and everybody has a very particular rhythm. Usually it looks very much the same on each person until you have some sort of disease, blockage, lack of oxygen, some swelling, something happens and that electricity goes through the heart very differently. So that's when we pick it up on the EKG. The problem is you have to be having some sort of damage at the moment or damage that's already happened for it to be picked up on an EKG. It is a screening test. It is not a diagnostic test. So if you have a normal EKG, don't be comfortable. You could walk out the door and be hit with a heart attack and you never saw it coming. EKG is not a very good way to screen for heart disease. The next thing you can do, though, if you have something abnormal in EKG or you're having symptoms that concern your physician, you can be sent to a cardiologist. Now, I have some great cardiology friends. I send to cardiologists all the time. I have lots of San Antonio is full of great people in this town who are cardiologists and have taken very good care of me. But cardiologists are limited. They're limited by their science, and this is not their fault. When you go and you get an ultrasound of your heart, an echo, again, that can tell you if you're already having some sort of issue. It doesn't really tell you about what is coming. It does in a sense, but you have to already be undergoing some sort of damage and disease to pick it up, in order to know whether it's something we can fix at the moment or not, or we can just give you medication and try to extend your life as long as possible. The other then is to get some sort of stress test, so a nuclear stress test, which is radiation. You lay on a table, you get injected with a very uncomfortable amount of adrenaline, race your heart, and then they look at the oxygen, that is the blood that is delivering oxygen to the heart to see if it's receiving what it needs. Again, you already have to have some damage and disease going on underneath there. And it doesn't tell you how much disease is going on. You would have to move on to a catheterization. That is where they'll put a line into your groin, into the artery that goes up to the heart. They shoot in some dye. You have to undergo anesthesia most of the time. Not always general anesthesia, which is very risky, but you also have to undergo at least a certain amount of medication that would sedate you and have that done. It is very risky, although these guys do it very proficiently on a daily basis, but it is risky. So that will give you ultimately a great answer, but again, it may be too late. So what do you do? How do you find out what is going on underneath the surface in the heart, and how could you find out 10 years ahead of time, 8 to 10 years ahead of time, what your risks are? What if you could put on some leads, just like the EKG, little tape and leads that go, wires that go across the chest on your arms and legs, and you lay there quiet and painlessly for about 8 to 10 minutes, and you get a tracing on a paper, several tracings on a page, a couple of pages that your doctor then, like me, can look over and read, and I can tell you up to 26 possible diseases that are going on your heart that you were either born with, that you are developing 10 years ahead of time, or something that is there that could take you out tomorrow that an EKG could not tell you. And what if I could tell you that me, as your primary care doctor, could work with you on this through diet, exercise, supplements, maybe medications if needed. There are some good medications out there. What if I could work with you on this, possibly reverse it, but at least reverse it to a point maybe within 6 months to a year where I can take you out of the disease process and tell you you've got plenty of more years left ahead of you, that your heart is now healthy, when before you were very close to having a heart attack. You've heard of the widowmaker? So this is the artery that is on the left side. When blocked significantly, is something that primarily happens to men that they just suddenly drop dead from. They have a heart attack, it's massive, and it kills you at the moment that it happens. There are also situations where you fall asleep and there's an arrhythmia, meaning an irregular heartbeat that develops in the middle of the night or during exercise or, sitting at your desk working. And that arrhythmia develops and it is deadly as well, instantly, called ventricular fibrillation. What about atrial fibrillation, another type of arrhythmia? I had this one last year, and it is very deadly in the fact that the top part of the heart beats irregularly. The swirling of blood can develop little blood clots. Those little blood clots can then fly to the brain, cause a massive stroke, which would either kill you at the moment or could also just cause you to have paralysis and be unable to take care of yourself. These are all things that people experience every day in the high amount of numbers. The swelling of the heart, the myocarditis. Took out a friend of mine last year that was 49 years old. He was a significant, alcohol drinker, and he was very young, exercising. He was doing CrossFit, had some blood pressure problems, had a little bit of cholesterol issues. I did not have any idea that he had that kind of significant swelling of his heart enough to kill him. In the middle of a day, we found him 2 days later in his home. This was very heartbreaking. He's 49 years old. If I'd had this test, I've only been doing this for a couple months now, it's been out for almost 10 years. If I'd had this exam, I could have found this and saved his life. There are so many lives that could be saved from this, and it's so easy to do. Now, the problem, I think, overall is the question that everybody gives me, and is it covered by insurance? Well, of course it's not. It's something that's very good for you, so why would it be covered by insurance? I'm extremely vocal on the insurance industry because the insurance industry is not interested in saving lives. They are interested in saving themselves money or making money, on the other hand. I'm very vocal about that, and we all know that it's not a secret. So it's not covered by insurance, and it's a very significant amount of science and work that goes in behind it to do it, to evaluate it, to put it through a very expensive machine and computer, and then for your doctor to read it. It takes minutes for me to read. It takes minutes for you to do. It is painless. It is not risking your life in any shape, form, or fashion. And it is easy to do. It is a $400 test. And I'll tell you up front, it'll be the best $400 you've ever spent in your life. And the reason it's $400, again, is because the science that's behind it. 2 million people have been studied. It is AI technology. So in this day and age of artificial intelligence, which I can be very vocal about being against, this is one area where I think we have it right. And it is the machine and the studies that it was an actual physician who studied this, and all the information technology went in, and then he uses AI in order to tabulate the information. But it was a human study that was done. This man is very, very intelligent and has put together over 2 million sources of information in order to bring this to light. And again, it diagnoses 26 or more issues surrounding the heart 10 years before you suffer any of these conditions. If you have a strangely shaped heart valve or there's damage going on in a heart valve, it finds that. If you were born with a congenital malformation, it finds that. You can do it on children. You can do it on children who are going to play sports. You can do it on young people, adolescents, for the same reason. If they're having heart issues, there's a new autoimmune disease of the heart called POTS. Many people are suffering from. It can find that as well. It can also then detect anywhere from an early age to an older age any underlying heart disease that comes from lack of diet and exercise, lack of focus on diet and exercise. Also, if you have a huge family history of people who have had heart attacks or strokes in their 30s, 40s, 50s, you need to have this done in your teens and 20s. There are so many heart diseases, again, over 26 different heart problems that can be found with a very, very simple test, and it can be repeated. So let's say I do an exam on you today, I find an extraordinary amount of information and concern, something that you could die from the next weeks or so. We could work on that, turn that around, we could repeat that in 6 months, and I could show you how much significant progress you've made in saving your own life. There's nothing more important than looking for heart disease, and we now have the information to be able to do that. So I'm going to be taking a break in just a moment. I do want to spend a moment on Pinnacle Clinical Research, Pinnacle Clinical Texas. Pinnacle Research Texas, excuse me. This is my sponsor, and these guys have taken very good care of me. Dr. Harrison, Dr. Patil, all those guys over there have been working with research to diagnose and save lives from fatty liver disease, another terrible condition that plagues South Texas. And in South Texas, you have a great resource. So I'm going to send you over to pinnacleresearch.com to get your free FibroScan scheduled so that you can find your fatty liver disease. Goes along with high cholesterol, so these are two great tests. One of them is not free, the other one is. Your FibroScan is free. It also takes about 7 to 10 minutes. You get to speak with a physician if you have any abnormalities, and you get to find out if you qualify for any research that might be life-saving for other people. Please go back and watch some of our shows on the Pinnacle Research and fatty liver, because there's a lot of great information. Again, something that's very, very life-saving. So pinnacleresearch.com for your free FibroScan. And then as far as finding information about getting your MCG or multifunctional cardiogram, call 210-698-7825. I'll also invite you to just email startnow@betterlifeweightloss.com. You can also just go to drpbetterlife.com, hit the contact form. All of these will come to me, and I will address where we need to get you scheduled. It takes 7 to 10 minutes, maybe. You'll be at the clinic for 15 minutes. I do this after hours from 5 to 6 p.m. Make it very easy. Come by after work. And it's Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays from 5 to 6 p.m. It's very easy to do. Bill, who is the technician who brings in the machine to do it, and he's very, very highly qualified. I read the exams. You have real results within a few days to a week. So please, drpbetterlife.com. You can also find all of my other podcasts, YouTube channel, and then find out how to listen to me on San Antonio radio at 930 The Answer. We're going to take a small break. I'll come back on the other side, talk a little bit more about heart disease stats. Thank you.
Fatty liver is linked to two different situations, alcohol and diabetes or obesity. In both cases, patients can have no symptoms. In the United States, and in particular, Texas, the most common cause of liver disease in general is non-alcoholic fatty liver. Again, associated with overweight, obesity, and/or diabetes. Additional risk factors include high cholesterol, high blood pressure, Hispanic ethnicity, and postmenopausal status. At Pinnacle Clinical Research, we offer a quick, non-invasive ultrasound-based screening assessment called FibroScan. This test is done at no cost to you, and we do not take insurance. The test will measure the fat and stiffness in your liver and stage your risk and development of fatty liver disease. You will meet with a provider immediately following your scan to go over your results. If you're interested in getting more information on your liver health, please call 210-982-0320 and schedule your FibroScan today. We are conveniently located in the Medical Center at 5109 Medical Drive.
Welcome back. I am Dr. Mariane Pinkston, and I am here talking today about the multifunctional cardiogram, which is also called MCG. It is a test that is going to change the face of heart disease, anywhere from heart attacks and arrhythmias such as ventricular fibrillation, where people have to get a defibrillator placed in their heart so that they don't die in the middle of their sleep, or for atrial fibrillation, which has been a lot higher. And all these arrhythmias have been a lot higher since we have had COVID. In fact, myocarditis, swelling of the heart, is actually also elevated, an elevated risk since COVID occurred. It is something that actually happened to me. I developed swelling in the area close to the heart that controls the rhythm of my heart, developed atrial fibrillation. And I did my testing before I actually had my ablation, and I did my testing after I had my ablation, and I was absolutely shocked to see the results of things that are going on underneath the surface. Let me share my story a little bit. So, 5 years ago, I was 300 pounds. I have lost 171 pounds over the last 5 years. And I have really worked out 4 or 5 days a week. I've worked out very hard. I had a, beautiful heart rate in the 50s. I could run for, 10 miles, not break a sweat. I really felt like I was in wonderful shape. But the years of diabetes and obesity that I suffered played a huge role in building up some disease within my heart that I really did not realize I had. I don't have a huge amount of heart disease in my family. I had a grandfather who had pretty significant disease, but for years I've had good blood sugars and good cholesterol, and I didn't realize the damage that had already been done. So for somebody who have dropped all that weight, basically cured diabetes, lowered my cholesterol to beautiful levels, I still had some damage there that I needed to know about. Now I've been able to treat that with a set of vitamins, continued exercise, and a few little modifications to my diet. Yep, still a few modifications to my diet. Redid my test, and I am absolutely just blown away by the results just in 6 months. When you come in and you have this testing done, we can find out whether you have early stages of congestive heart failure from sleep apnea, from high blood pressure. We can tell if you have a buildup of blockages from arteriosclerosis or from cholesterol buildup in your arteries. It could be in one artery, it can be in multitude of arteries. I can tell you if it is only a small amount, under 30% blocked, or I can tell you if it's 30 to 80% blocked. I can also tell you if you are impending on having a heart attack very, very soon. Nobody can tell exactly when, but it can happen at a strike of lightning anytime. I can tell you if you're close to that. I can tell you if you have the widowmaker. I can tell you if you have an arrhythmia that is developing that might, take you in the middle of the night as well. I can also tell you if you have some underlying valve disease that is developing that could cause you to have congestive heart failure down the road. I can tell you if you have pulmonary artery hypertension. There's so many things that we can pick up. Again, over 26 different diseases that affect the heart. We can pick that up 8 to 10 years ahead of time, treat it in my office, and spare you all of the copays and deductibles and radiation exposure and exposure to anesthesia and some of these more dangerous testing. And it is something that can be done in my office for 8 to 10 minutes, laying there with no medicine whatsoever. It blows me away. Over 2 million people studied. And I'm wanting to bring this to you today because our intent as doctors is saving lives. These days, when you go into a doctor's office or you go into mostly a corporate-run layout of a doctor's office, we are hell-bent on looking at guidelines now, guidelines that serve to try to prevent disease, but most of the time when you're in a doctor's office, you're receiving treatment for disease that is already developed that can't be treated, and we're just trying to put the brakes on the potential life-ending disease that is now being seen. What if you can find that 10 years ahead of time, be treated without medication, get this reversed, and significantly improve and extend your life? There are other things that you can get sick from, cancers, things like that. But if you are doing well enough to improve your cardiovascular health, you're improving your health in that way too. So I truly, truly beg you, get in touch with me, drpbetterlife.com. You can go to the contact form and reach me through there, and I will set this up for you. Again, it's after hours, 5 to 6 p.m., Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. As we get busier, I'll expand those hours to accommodate people. It is not covered by insurance. It is $400. $400 to save your life and spare yourself all the deductibles and hospitalization costs, medication copays to the doctor's office for all these tests, which usually, once you get a great cardiology evaluation, can end up over $3,000 out of your own pocket, not including the medications that you're going to spend your money on trying to take and all the side effects and issues from that. So again, multifunctional cardiogram. It is an MCG. Call my office, 210-698. I almost gave you my cell phone number, 210-698-7825. Go to drpbetterlife.com. find the contact form. You can also look for all of my other shows. I've got a lot of great life-saving information out there for you. I'm happy to have you come in and look at things like hormone replacement, vitamins and supplements, lots of great physicians out there that I've talked to over the nation, from the American Academy of Anti-Aging, Regenerative Medicine, A4M, a lot of great superstars, people who are trainers and nutritionists, and my great pharmacist up in Austin, Texas, or Cedar Park, Texas, Ray Solano. Lots of great life-saving information, drpbetterlife.com. Everybody, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope this is information you can use. Get your family in, get your kids in, get your husband, your parents, your grandparents, get yourself in, and do something wonderfully life-saving for yourself. I wish you guys a blessed week. Thank you.